Don't forget we had a football team as well, Keith, didn't we?
Man United, Arsenal.
Yeah, Jim Pomfret's team.
Not a patch, was he?
The one-armed bandit.
Cray United, 17th 11.
Yeah, I think everybody in St Paul's Cray played for Jim Pomfret, didn't they?
In the end, they did.
Yeah.
And we put together a ramshackled side, and I think I was probably the only one who'd ever played any sort of organised league football at all, I think, at the time.
Probably, yeah. That's right.
Although they ended up with some good players. Like I say, I reckon most of the people in the pub would have played for us at one time, wouldn't they?
Everybody.
You know.
Even Stevie Banwell.
Yeah.
Honking up on the wing, wasn't he?
He didn't know, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's doing that
bloke went flying past it.
Yeah.
Stevie.
And what about Paul Mulvey?
Yeah, Paul Mulvey, the only 5-foot goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah, but no, come on, be fair. He did compensate because at least he was 5 foot fucking wide.
Yeah, he was great on the ground.
Oh.
Anything near the crossbar, he was fucked, wasn't he?
But we had a good side though. We ended up with a good side after a couple of seasons.
Yeah.
We lost our first game 13-0, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then we beat the team in the second half of the season. We actually beat that team 4-0 when we got our team refined a little bit and sort of Joey Rick would play. He was he ended up a really good player. Joey Dickie Hooker was playing.
Always a good player.
Yeah, and they went on to better and bigger things, didn't they? Played quite well. But we attracted some good players.
Yeah.
But the laughs we used to have though.
Oh, that was the thing.
Going to the games and getting in the dressing rooms and all that type of stuff. What about the? Well, you tell the story of what about Barry Wheeler? Tell
Barry Wheeler. Well,
we've got a couple of stories about Barry Wheeler.
Yeah, but Oblingwell must have been the worst drain pitch in the world. Even in summer, it had about 2 inches of mud on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember Barry did some theatrical sliding tackle, didn't he? And he came to a stop right by the girlfriends of the opposition. And he goes, God, look, I've got mud all up me bollocks, all up me arse, under me force. and they're just looking at him in the face. That was Barry, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. We were playing down the Stable Meadows one day, and we had Turkey Mumford come and play for us.
Yeah.
I don't know why he ever, because he never used to drink in the partridge, did he? But anyway, he came and played for us. So Turkey Mumford gets the ball well inside his own half, and Stable Meadows it had a big slope on it like that.
Yeah.
So he's gone round one player, gone round two players, gone round about 6 or 7 of their players, gone round the goalkeeper, and not only that, because he was head down merchant when he just run, gone round the goalkeeper, then he looked up and he'd gone round the fucking goal. What about the time we played the deaf and dumb team?
Oh yeah. Well, when we only had 7 players. Car broke down and we started playing with 7 players and we found ourselves 3-0 up, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then the car showed up. And
cruising.
It was lovely. And then when we had 11 players, they pulled back to 3-3, didn't they? Yeah. But then Kenny scored a majestic heading goal from a corner, didn't he? Nutted it in. The only trouble is it was past our goalkeeper, Barry Wheeler, wasn't it? He chased Kenny. He went fucking
trying to kick the fucking shit.
He went mad, didn't he? And Kenny done the right thing because he didn't want to get caught by Barry.
That's right. I think Kenny tried to hop over a fence, didn't he? Something like that. But what about the changing rooms? It was like walking into a smoke haze, wasn't it? It was talking about healthy.
Yeah. Riggy smoking, even smoked while he was in goal sometimes when he played
and
for us.
Barry Wheeler did exactly the same.
Always had a fag in his mouth, didn't he?
Yeah.
But what about Joe Rickwood though?
He was funny, Joey, wasn't he?
Yeah. He used to get all his words arse upwards, didn't he?
What about the time he stuck on a red? I think it might have even been just his tie or something like that. He stuck his tie around his head. Looked like he'd been watching too many American Vietnam films. Like he's got it down here like that.
Yeah.
And he shouts out. He goes. He said, "Right, lads." He said, "Here come the Capachis." then he said, what was the other one he come out with? And he said, I think it was half time and we might have been losing somewhere. I think it was again at Oblinwell. And he goes, he said, right, we've got to go out in this half. He said, we've got to have some dermatation. And you said to him, that's some sort of fucking disease, isn't it? No, dear. That was a.
What about when Simon Perry played for us?
Ah, yeah,
He played for
That's right, he did play for Simon.
Quite a big DJ, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he used to be. He worked at Annabelle's, didn't he? Up in one of the big clubs.
Yeah.
And so I reckon do you remember when he again in all the mud, wasn't it? Up at Oblinwell pitch number 1.
Yeah. When he went down, he got fouled, didn't he? Oh yeah.
He goes down in a big crumpled heap, and I don't know what I couldn't work out what he'd done because he'd hurt his legs, and instead of laying there, he'd actually trying to sit up all the time, and somebody's gone up to him and said, how's your legs? He said, don't worry about me fucking legs. He said, keep my hair out of the mud. He said, I've got a gig tonight. He used to have all his hair all down and didn't want to get it wet and didn't want to go in the showers with it. Fuck, mate. Well, you know what we've got to do now, don't you?
What, the ground?
Severe fucking name dropping now, mate.
Yeah. Working for Brian Mason.
I mean, I tell people about some of the stuff that we did at the Greyhound and and working all over the place, but I ain't sure a lot of them really deep down believe me, Mick.
No, I don't suppose they do really. I don't say nothing to anyone really. No, because I know what's the point?
Yeah,
I'm not going to believe it. So all the people we mix with, Rolling Stones,
sung on stage with Status Quo.
Yeah.
And
David Bowie.
Bowie, yeah, you name it. We've met them, and Genesis.
Everybody that was big in rock music was at the ground, wasn't they?
Apart from the Beatles, we never saw the Beatles or the Who. Beatles and the Who never actually made it, did.
Mind you, the Who was in the Iron Curtain Club, weren't they?
They was, but we weren't working there at the time.
No.
But I think singing on stage with Quo and Mungo, people like Mungo Jerry.
Yeah.
And you remember that Mungo Jerry? They used to. The bloke had this big flagon of like a cider flagon that he used to go whoop, 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 like that. I've blown into that, And he said to me, this geezer said to me, I don't know who his fucking name was. Wouldn't know him from Adam these days. He said, it took me ages, he said, to get one of these with the right tone. He said, I thought, oh fuck, if you get the same bloody noise out of a milk bottle, couldn't he? So we've been on, we've done all that, haven't we?
Yeah.
And working at the Greyhound was, and other clubs. I mean, it wasn't just a Greyhound we worked
Big Apple.
Big Apple in Brighton, which was, we'll talk a bit more about that in depth though. But working for Mason was one of the funniest experiences of our lives. I mean, and the one that springs to mind, and I was lying in bed just the other week thinking about this, it would just piss myself with laughter. Well, we did the Christmas Eve disco up at the Daylight Inn, and it wasn't all that far from us. So we're up the Daylight Inn, and it was snowing heavens, snowing outside. There was a foot of snow. And this disco was packed, and the geezer walked in, and we had the cloakrooms was, I don't know if you remember the Daylight Inn, there was, disco was here and the bar was there, but the cloakroom was actually upstairs in the top bit. And I've still got this memory in the back of my mind. It was actually Dave Fawn was actually up there, and I don't know if we wrote Dave Fawn in, and Martin Joyce, I think, we wrote them in to do some work on this particular night. And they were giving out raffle tickets as cloakroom tickets. So this bloke walked in this night and he had the most beautiful, brand new, full-length sheepskin coat that his parents had got him for Christmas. It was a beautiful coat. And at the end of the evening, when everything had packed up and it overrun a bit and everybody was clambering for their coats and it was just fucking bedlam. There was people trying to get up this one flight of stairs and down it with coats. There was queues everywhere. Anyway, and it was, again, it was a blizzard outside, and when this fucking geezer When this geezer went to pick his coat up and he's got his ticket in his hand, all that was left was a fucking pack-a-mac. He hit the fucking roof, and his old man got on to Mason, got on to Brian Mason, and threatened to sue him and all that. I've never seen anything like it all my life. Yeah. But that was a funny. But when we worked at the Greyhound with all the you name it, Mick,
Rod Stewart, Johnny Wood, and the Faces, as they were then, as they become.
Yeah.
Because do you remember when? Because when Stevie Marriott left the Small Faces, they sort of hit the doldrums a bit, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they weren't doing too good. And Brian Mason let them put a gig on, didn't he? And the contract they signed, which was a standard Brian Mason contract, had that magic clause in it, didn't it, that none of them knew about, was that at any time in the future, Brian could call them back to do another gig for the same money.
Yeah.
And because what happens to the Faces? Rod Stewart joins them, Maggie May.
Yeah.
So Brian Mason straight away on the phone, come back please.
Yeah.
And they had the hump over it, didn't they? Oh, they didn't like it at all, because they were big time then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Back in the big time.
Yeah.
And Rod Stewart turned up hour and a half late, didn't he? Hour and a half late. And because the crowd were going mad, weren't they?
Yeah.
Rightly so, they paid their money. Because you had to get out of that building, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because the manager, it was a manager.
It was 11 o'clock. Like, what was it? Actually, it was 10:30 licence. It was a Sunday night.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, because Rod Stewart goes out in the changing room, out the back, didn't he? And he refused to go on, didn't he? He said they'll fucking lynch me if I go out there. And old Stevie Mason got him by the throat up against the wall. You're going to fucking get out there now. And he went out there, and they put a great show on, didn't they? And they overran a bit, didn't they?
Yeah.
Aye. And because overrunning caused trouble, didn't it?
So I remember we were in the bar all having a drink afterwards, and there was Ronnie Lane and Ronnie Wood, and we used to drink quite regularly with Ronnie Wood after that. If you remember, Danny used to pop in and have a beer with us quite on a regular basis. And Rod Stewart was there, and then Mason comes out. Go on, tell him.
Not only was he getting Rod Stewart and the Faces on the cheap, just after Maggie May, he docked them money, didn't he? Because they overran.
Yeah, and he's got expenses.
I've got expenses to pay. And we never got fuck all, did we? No, we weren't the extra, but we never got nothing. So Ronnie Wood was, I don't know if he was pissed, drugged up, or both really.
He went berserk, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a jug of beer, he had a lager, it was half full, and he threatened Brian, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Brian, there was me, you and Martin Hodgson standing behind him, weren't we?
Yeah.
And Brian said, I wouldn't start if I was you, I've got my
team. Yeah. We was a team, weren't we? Back, couldn't fight away out of a paper bag.
And I'm thinking, fuck me, I'm going to be fighting Ronnie Wood.
And the thing is, they were flying out to Spain the following morning, and he needed the cash, didn't they? One night we had David Bowie was on, and he used to come quite regularly to the Greyhound, Bowie, and he was a big star then. The place used to get packed out. On this particular evening, the backup group to David Bowie was the first ever live show at Roxy Music, and this had caused some. I wasn't into that sort of music back in them days, and I just used to work there. But they were good to watch live, but I was never into this, that hippie scene, And so Roxy Music there, and it caused a major ripple right through the music industry, and everybody who was anybody wanted to be at the door.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we were under strict instructions that nobody was to get in unless they had a ticket with them. Brian sold pre-sold tickets, or they had a press pass. And we're working on it. There's all these people come. Graham Williams from the old Grey Whistle Test rolls up, and there's all these people that come in, and all the hangers on, and all got press passes, all from the Melody Maker and all of them sorts of people. And Anne Nightingale rolls up, and Martin Hodgson standing on the door, and she rolls up and she said, "Oh, press." And Martin looked at her and said, "Have you got your press pass?" And she said, "No." So I said, "Well, you can fuck off then." And she said, "No, you know who I am." He said, "I couldn't give a fuck who you are." And funny enough, nobody did know what she looked like, because Anne was on the radio. She was a radio, she was the one of the top radio DJs. But I wouldn't know her from Adam,
No.
And so Martin ends up booting her out, and she then went round to the front door because we had two entrances, and you could only go in with a ticket through one door, but this one was for sort of emergency and letting other people up and down and whatever. And the groups and all that used to come out that way. And she rolled up there. I can't remember who it was, but she was also told to fuck off as well, you know. But she did get in because I saw her all with her arms all round Brian Mason, all lovey-dovey and that, you know. Yeah. So she's obviously got a word to Brian, and he's let her in the end of the day. Yeah. But you know.
But we also had the Hells Angels coming, didn't we, Keith?
Yeah,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell! But they come in one week, didn't they? And do you remember they had like a big fella who was like their sort of leader, I suppose, wasn't he?
He was.
And he must have been working on his bike because he must have gone like that, and he had that black smudge across here. Do you remember that? And they come in, they watched the gig. They was good as gold, weren't they? They had a couple of beers. They watched the gig. They went.
Yeah.
Following week, in they come again. Bloke still had that smudge here.
They still saying smudge all down. There was about 20 of them, wasn't there?
Oh yeah.
They weren't never really bothered.
And they're women. And then, do you remember the manager of the building?
Yeah.
He was on the bastard, wasn't he? He didn't want him in there. And I remember I was standing on the top of the stairs. You know the big stairs went by the foyer there?
Yeah.
And you come up to me and went, "You ain't going to believe this." I said, "What?" He said, "We got to throw those bikers out."
Yeah. Brian Mason went up to me, he said, "Keith," he said, "See those Hells Angels?" I said, he said, "Throw them out," and walked off. I was like, "What?"
Fucking hell. Yeah. So I said, "Oh, all right." So you said to me, "Come," and then, so I remember that walk, you had the foyer, the bar, and then you had the hall. That was a fucking long walk. That was like the Green Mile, wasn't it? Walking to our deaths, wasn't it? I thought, we're going to get fucking murdered here. And
I mean, the thing...
When we went in the hall, they was all lined up against the back wall, and right in the middle was this bloke with his smudge. To your credit, Keith, you went straight up to him and said, "Sorry, mate, but you've got to leave. The manager wants you to go." And he just went, "Oh, all right."
And they all left like lambs.
But his girlfriend went, "That's fucking out of order, isn't it?" And he said, he shut her up, didn't he? And they just walked out.
Just walked out the door. It was amazing.
Good as gold.
We weren't. I mean, Brian Mason had his bounce. I mean, Terry Hodgson and Bobby Johnson and people like that used to work for Brian in the early days. But when Brian went over to the heavy music scene, he didn't want your typical bouncer. He just wanted people like stewards. I mean, we couldn't, like I say, couldn't punch our way out of a paper bag.
We had our ear down here as well, didn't we?
But we blended in, and that's what he wanted. And
he was right, wasn't he?
He was right, because otherwise it would have turned the pandas off. But having to go up to them, though.
That was frightening.
You know, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And like I say, we got to meet and drink with them all. We went to remember the DJ had a party, and we went there, and the Status Quo were playing in this fucking bloke's living room. Do you remember?
Because they'd done the gig that night.
They'd done the gig, yeah.
And they were by far the most professional group that got there, didn't they? Because we used to get there pretty early, didn't we?
Yeah.
But they were the only group to get there before us.
Yeah.
They set up. They'd done a quick rehearsal, and they were sitting in the bar. And when we come in,
Dog the Roadie, do you remember him?
Yeah, it was just like talking to normal people. They weren't sort of didn't have their head up their arse or anything like that, did they?
The only one was a bit aloof was John Rossi. Francis Rossi was the only one.
I thought he was all right.
But perhaps he didn't like me. I don't know. But,
no. But I mean, when we was at that party, we was out in the kitchen chatting away. That was good,
it was good as gold, wasn't it? Good as gold.
Yeah.
We've got to mention the Stones, don't we?
Well, that was the big one, wasn't it?
You know,
the biggest band in the world.
Biggest band in the world, and there we are. There we are. Which was a 2-day affair, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Setting up and working down at the Big Apple.
Yeah. The Stones, to their credit, they paid £1,000 to have that stage made bigger, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that £1,000 was a lot
of money back in them days.
They paid for it. Brian never paid for it.
No.
They wouldn't have got fuck all out of him, would they?
No. The top of the stage was just one big spotlight show, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mick Jagger was good, wasn't he? He did his.
But I've got a picture of me on. I used to have a picture. Should I say? I'll take that back. I used to have a picture of me that they put in the paper with the Stones on stage and me standing at the back of the stage.
Oh yeah.
And they put it in the local Brighton paper, but I've lost. I sent it away for it and got it, but time goes on and you bloody lose it.
Yeah.
But what about when they were setting up? And so we're all there early, and we're helping organising and things like that. And me and Martin are standing on in the foyer to this place, and Charlie Watts walks in. And so Martin said, I'll show you through, you know. Apparently I didn't know this, but Charlie Watts used to do a lot of the setting up and make sure everything was right.
Yeah.
Used to get it before any of the other members of the band. And so we're walking up the stairs, and Martin's in front of me with Charlie Watts. We're walking up the stairs, and Charlie Watts says to Martin, he said, "What's your name?" And Martin said, "Martin, what's yours?" And then what about the when I made a prat of myself?
You certainly did. He went up to Mick Jagger and said, "Mr. Jagger, can I shake your hand?" What a tosser.
For fucking weeks after that, everybody's going, "Oh, Miss Willie, can I shake your hand?" Oh, fuck off.
Possessed you to say that?
I don't know. But he did though.
Yeah,
he did.
But we had a bit of bother, did we, there with Mick Taylor?
Yeah.
The new bloke in the band just after Brian Jones, when he took over from Brian Jones, and you had the plum job, the lift, didn't you?
Yeah. I was looking after the celebrity lift.
Yeah, bringing him up in the lift. And
anyway, Geezer comes in, and I said, "Have you got either a ticket or a press pass?" If you had a ticket, you had to go around and queue up anyway. I said, "You've got a press pass." And he said, "Don't you know who I am?" I said, "I couldn't give a fuck who you are." I said, "You ain't coming in here." And he was quite a tall bloke, about 6'3". He had this big Afghan coat on and a gorgeous model bird with him. He said, "Oh," I said, "I don't know who you are." He said, "I'm Mick Taylor." I said, "I couldn't give a fuck who you are." And I didn't know he'd taken over from Brian Jones, because it was, you know, I wouldn't know him from a fucking crow. And he said, "I'm with the band." I said, oh. And anyway, so I took him up, and then the place was packed at this time. There was people everywhere, and I handed him over to Mick, and then you had to go and find Brian Mason.
Well, it was my job to take the band and their entourage from the lift to the dressing rooms, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And directly he come out the lift, that Mick Taylor said, "I want to speak to the promoter."
Yeah.
So, okay. So we walked through, and Brian was talking to the chief fire officer, wasn't he?
For Sussex, for the whole of Sussex.
Yeah. And because the Stones were using so much power, weren't they? And it was such a massive fire risk, wasn't it? Right. You know, which these gigs were then.
The bloke in the power company said I could have fed the whole of the Brighton front for 2 fucking weeks with the amount of power they used in here.
That's right. So I went over to Brian, and I whispered in his ear that Mick Taylor would like a word. He said, "Yeah, just ask him to hang on a bit, it won't be a minute." Went over to Mick Taylor and said, "Yeah, it won't be a minute, he's just chatting." He put it like this, and he went over to Brian and said, "Oi, don't you know who I am? I'm Mick Taylor of the Rolling Stones." And Brian said to him, "I don't give a fuck who you are. This is the chief fire officer of the south of England. He's more important than you'll ever be."
That's right.
Now you go over there and wait.
If I don't sweeten him up, you know, he's going to shut the whole gig down anyway.
Look at him, he was a powerful man.
Yeah.
But because I'm sure Mick Taylor's mum and dad were there.
Yeah.
Because he had other family members there, but there was a couple, I think it was his mum and dad, made him look a right proud.
That's right,
in front of his family. And he stomped off, didn't he? He never did speak to Brian, he stomped off. And they never did an encore for that, did they?
He refused to come out for the encore.
Yeah.
Wanker.
What a wanker.
You know.
But, I mean, we all got up on stage in the end, didn't we? And
it was great.
It was a fantastic experience, it really was.
Mick Jagger came out, he had a white silk suit on, and by changing the colours of the lights overhead, they just changed the colour of his suit from each number. It's just an amazing show. Right?
That man does work, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But what about Keith Richard? He had that fag in his strings all night, didn't he? And he whacked back that half a bottle of brandy straight down, didn't he? Fucking that man can drink.
He don't know what his liver's got to be bollocks.
I don't know how he's still alive.
No.
Yeah.
And with the times though, Mick, weren't they?
They certainly were, yeah. It was good times. Good times. Do you remember that bird you pulled at the Greyhound, Keith? Sophie?
Do I ever, eh?
She was a cracker, wasn't she?
Did it have some lunch or what, did it, eh?
She was enormous, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
She had the biggest pair of... She was a nice looking bird.
She was gorgeous, wasn't she?
Yeah. And I took her to, I think it was Ricky Rickwood's wedding.
Yeah.
At the...
Seacadet Hall.
The Seacadet Hall up at Rusty Corner.
Yeah.
And we had a drink in the Partridge beforehand, I remember rightly. And I walked in the Partridge with her, and who's the first fucking bloke up the bar, you know, is Dave A-Day.
Yeah.
And as I walked up the bar and I introduced her introduced her to Dave, he went, hello, and he looked at her and he went, fuck me, ain't you got some? He went like that, And I ordered a drink, and then Terry Hodson walks in, and he said, do anybody want a drink? He's buying a fucking drink, and he bought me a pint, and he said, would you like a fucking rusk with that, Keith? Talk about fucking embarrassing. Oh dear.
That was secret it all.
I know.
We was all standing together. I think Martin was there and that, and Dave Ado was facing the front. He turned round, he sees Sophie, he went.
I didn't see her too many. I didn't take her in the party too many times after that.
No, I don't think so. No. Shame about that.
You ought to tell the story though, because it is a classic of. And we don't want to be. Vindictive, do we?
No.
And we don't want to name names with people, But one of the blokes we used to go to the Greyhound with decided on this occasion that he wanted to start taking his sister along.
Yeah.
So no names, no pack drill, but tell the
Well, he had this big Austin Westminster, lovely car it was, and me, you, and Martin would be in the back, weren't we? And it was you and Martin's. Goal in life was to get people to wind the window down and gag out the window because you just kept all the curries you used to eat. Oh, that was disgusting, that car. Anyway, I remember at least twice having to wind the window down and gag out the window because it was so disgusting. So that was the atmosphere in the car, wasn't it? Going there.
Yeah.
And then when this bird started coming along. And she was a sour-faced bitch.
Oh,
she never spoke to us.
No.
She never smiled. She was horrible, wasn't she? So I remember.
And fucking ugly.
Yeah. But do you remember you and Martin come up with this airbrain scheme because you didn't want her to come? Because she was baggage, wasn't she? We were going there to work, and you thought if we swear a lot. Perhaps she won't come anymore.
Be obnoxious.
As obnoxious as possible. Well, you and Martin went at it tooth and nail, didn't you? I'll put my 2 pence in, but bloody hell, you two went at it. And then when we finished work, we went round the restaurant round the corner, didn't we? As we always did for something after work. And we ordered our curries, and we got ours, and she was still sitting there without her meal. And I remember a waiter walking past, as he walked past, she went, oi, where's my fucking omelette? And I remember looking at you and you looking up and looking at Martin and I thought, well,
that's us fact, isn't it?
Because we've talked about holidays at Cray United, but we've also been abroad a few times, Keith, to Spain particularly, haven't we?
Just on the odd occasion.
Yeah, a few times. Yeah. We've had a few good times in places like Benidorm, Torremolinos.
Mallorca,
Magaluf, Palma Nova,
Norway on the infamous
Norway.
You'd get locked up these days, though, wouldn't you? Some of the stuff.
But it was all good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, we didn't get out, man. We didn't get out of it.
No, not really. No.
But when we look back on it and think of all the stuff that went on, we mentioned in the Kenny video about throwing all that stuff and. Getting into people's rooms and doing all that sort of stuff. I mean, it was just, it was harmless at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Do you remember when I put you... Because we always stayed together, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we had to, didn't we?
Yeah. And...
we were the only ones who never snored, so we didn't sleep.
We were the only ones getting a decent night's sleep.
That's right,
I thought this idea of putting your part of the room on the balcony, do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't know why you did that. I don't know what I did to upset you, Mick. What did I do? I don't know.
But it was nice and neatly set out, wasn't it? You had your bed out there, didn't you? You had your stuff out there. It was quite nice, wasn't it? And I remember I got home before you, and you'd had a skinful that night, hadn't you? And I pretended to be asleep.
I got in the room, pissed, and when you're pissed and you look at something, you can't really quite believe it's true. And I looked in this one bed, and you're in bed, and it never nothing registered. And then I went out, saw the bed out on the balcony, and I went out on the balcony and I'm looking around, there's my bed there, there's the bedside table, the lamp, everything out there. And I'm looking around saying, what? I just couldn't work it out. Then I heard click. And you fucking locked me out there. and I had to spend the night out on this balcony, getting eaten by mosquitoes.
Yeah.
But that weren't the worst bit. Would you let me back in for a piss? Oh, no. I had to piss over the balcony, and again, like these days, you'd get locked up for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would, yeah.
You know, I woke up in the early hours, I think it was about, 5 o'clock in the morning, breaking my neck for a piss, and I'm banging on the window, and you're going, back off,
What about the others who come with us, though? What about Chrissy Whelan?
Oh.
When he come with us?
Chrissy was like today, like you say, some of the stuff he did, you would get locked up for.
He was like a walking time bomb, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He I was tracking this German bird for a couple of days, and I was getting on alright with her, but she wouldn't come up to my room. She wouldn't, no way. She just wouldn't have it. And then I cracked it one night, and she said, "Okay." She said, "I'll come up to your room after the disco." So I went up to you and said, "Mick, you got to spend the night with Chrissy Whelan and George." Was it George? It was George, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't George. It was Kenny. It might have been. No, I think it was George. It was Georgie Rickwood. So you got to keep in with Georgie Rickwood because and Chris, because I pulled this bird. Anyway, I take this bird up to the room, and I walk in the room, and Chrissy Whelan had been in there, and in shaving foam he'd drawn a fucking great big swastika. She was German, I should have said she was German, but he drew this fucking great big swastika on the bed. And she looked at it like that, and she looked at me, she just walked out the fucking door and would never ever talk to me again. She thought it was me, thought I was taking a piss out of her.
And then he did that tattoo on that other German bird, do you remember that? Yeah, she liked it because
she was fascinated by his tattoos.
Yeah, he had a lot of tattoos, didn't he, Chris? Yeah. And he decided, he said, "I'll give you one." And he got a biro, didn't he? And he said, "Close your eyes, because it's a surprise for you." And he did all these lines so she couldn't understand what it was he was drawing. And when she opened his eyes, he drew a great big cock and balls on her arm.
Oh, no.
But then there's the business in the cab.
Yeah. We must be the only taxi people who, fares that have had a taxi driver pull a gun on us. Not, normally it's the fare who pulled a gun on the driver, but we were in the centre of Torremolinos, and it was a bizarre night. It was a good night. I mean, we had no trouble at all, and Chrissy all of a sudden got wound up by some Spanish bloke, and we ended up, I won't tell that story, so we bundle Chris in a cab, and he's in the middle, Jimmy Pickens in the driver's, in the passenger seat in the front, Kenny's in the other side, and Chrissy was wound up. He was like, we had to get him out of the place, and he kept screaming down his taxi driver's ear roll. And as we neared the hotel, this cab driver reaches in with his left hand, he reaches into the glove compartment, Jimmy Pickens there, he reaches in the glove compartment and he brings out a gun and points it at Chrissy in Spanish, telling him to shut the fuck up. As soon as he got that gun out, Jimmy Pickens had opened the fucking door.
He's got about 30 minutes.
He had opened the door and he went straight out, he dived out the door like he'd been thrown out by the mafia, And the funny thing was, instead of Chrissy, as you would, instead of holding your hands up like that, Chrissy's trying to grab the fucking gun. Oh, we had to drag him out. I want to give. No, show me the gun. Show us. It was. If he'd have got hold of that gun and it was loaded, there would have been.
Oh God, I don't know anything about it.
What would we have done?
Don't know.
And talking to Jimmy, and I think we mentioned Jimmy a couple of times. Jimmy Pickens.
Yeah.
Fuck, he could talk, couldn't he?
He didn't know no one, did he, Keith?
No, he did not know anybody.
Yeah. Do you remember we went to Benidorm and first night we goes out?
Wasn't Benidorm. It was in. We were in Magaluf.
Magaluf.
We were in Magaluf, yeah. He didn't come to Benidorm because we went to. There was only me and you went to Benidorm with the
Thomas Cook.
With the Thomas Cook.
Yeah, I went with. Yeah. But I mean, we first night out walking down the street. Who did we bump into?
Yeah.
Johnny Lewis.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Pickens, everywhere we went in the south of England, if we went to a pub, I'd always bump into somebody I know, and he said to me, don't know how many times he said, I just can't believe how many people you know. And we were in a bar in Magaluf, and he said, I still can't believe you weep. And he said, everywhere we go, he said, you bump into somebody we know. And I said, yeah, funny that. I said, see that bloke up the bar there, Jim? He said, yeah. I said, I fucking know him. And he went, you fucking liar. And I said, come with me. So I took him up the bar, and Alan Howe, I used to play football with down at the paper mill, was standing at the bar, tapped him on the shoulder. And he said, Keith, how are you? Let's have a drink. It floored Picking, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It absolutely floored him.
But the best one was in Ipswich, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We went to Ipswich to see them birds, do you remember that?
Yeah, go on, tell the story.
Yeah, because Jim had this thing about how you seem to know everybody. And who was he telling? He was talking about...
He was talking to one of the girls walking down here.
Yeah, walking down, and all of a sudden, beep, 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 it was Johnny Squires, isn't it? In his lorry, going, hello, Keith, how are you? And he said, I don't believe it.
He was only telling the story, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It bloody flew. That always floored Picking.
That was a great idea.
But talk, though.
We could talk.
He
told him once, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did, yeah.
He talked non-stop for 14 minutes before...
Without taking a fucking breath.
Before stopping talking for 1 minute. That was why we see how long he could talk before stopping for 1 minute.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, so some holidays. You got to tell the story of the Norway trip.
Norway, yeah, that was a great trip, wasn't it? There was you and me, Martin Hodson, Ray Slater, and Trevor Hall. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it was a rough trip out there because Trevor drove us up to Newcastle, didn't he?
He did.
And God, that was a trip and a half across the North Sea, wasn't it? Everyone was sick except you because you stayed in bed. So
14 hours, I think it was, wasn't it? It was a world record or something like that.
That was a bad trip across there. Do you remember when we got up the next morning? I mean, we was all in the canteen. Trevor was last as usual, preening himself because he always looks like he just got out of the men's catalogue, didn't he?
Giving it large,
immaculately set up.
Yeah, giving it. No, I remember.
Yeah. But do you remember when he walked in the canteen and there was a backpacker sleeping on the floor? I think he was Aussie, wasn't he?
Oh, he was Aussie.
Yeah. And he walked in, he looked down, what's fucking going on here? Oi, it's not a fucking seaman's mission. And the bloke said, if any more out of you and you're over the side and you went, But do you remember when we docked in Bergen?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, the snow. There was a blizzard, wasn't there? The likes of which I've not seen before or since.
No.
Because we're not prepared for it, were we? I remember I had like a trench coat, which was thin. I don't think you had much of a coat.
I had a like a light overcoaty type thing.
Yeah, Martin had the same.
3/4 length or something.
Yeah,
like
that's all we had. I mean, but Ray Slater, he had fuck all he had was a. Do you remember that silver suit jacket?
Suit jacket.
And the next shirt. That's all he had. Yeah. And then the snow was unbelievable, wasn't it? And we go down the old gangplank, didn't we? And then Trevor.
We went up the mountain like that. Remember, we got stuck up the cable car.
But what about when we going down the street? Ray and Trevor decided to skip right down the centre of the road, didn't they? They skipped down in this blizzard. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that railway you talk about, that funicular railway, I mean, that was one hell of a railway. When none of your Hastings, Toy Town, funicular railways there, was it? No. It was like going up London, wasn't it? But you're going up the mountain. Yeah. With stations, weren't there? People getting on and off.
Incredible thing.
And we got up the top, didn't we? And the station at the top was just a concrete box, wasn't it? With an hole in it that was the door out onto the top of the mountain.
And a fucking bigger blizzard up there.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Trevor was in front, and he stuck his head out, and it was so cold. He said, I think I've seen enough of this. And he said, yeah, it sounds good. And when we turned round, the doors of the train went gone, like that. And we had to stay up there for an hour, didn't we, to the next train.
Wait for the next one.
Well, I couldn't feel my feet at all.
No, I don't know how Slater did it.
I don't know how he done it.
But it was like he was going out for a Sunday fucking stroll, wasn't it?
I've never been so cold in my life as I was up there.
And talking of cold, it wasn't cold when I was there, but we went to Switzerland for a school trip, and it was when I was 15. And we went out. We were going out on a day trip, probably up the Jungfrau like everybody does back in them days. And we're on this bloody coach party right in the arsehole of Switzerland, in the middle of nowhere. And we decided to pull in, or the coach driver decided to pull in and get some drinks and stuff in a little chalet, touristy type place. We pile out the coach, and who comes walking out the fucking door? Trevor Hall. Right? you know, nowadays you wouldn't bat an eyelid, but this is the days when the world was a lot bigger place than it is now. You know,
that's right.
You know, you don't think anything of it now, but I mean, back in them days, fucking Trevor Hall walks out the door and they're floored.